Sean, where are you? Where is he?
Ellie, can you hear us?
My check. No, you're good. You're good. No, there's tons of space.
Gabby, can you hear me?
It looks like we're close now. That's Sean back on yet?
Yep.
Kelly?
Sean?
Yeah, I'm here. Barely hear you.
We turn that up louder so we can.
Testing.
That's better. Sorry about that.
We're up. Okay, I'd like a motion for past minutes. So moved. Marty?
Still can't hear.
You guys gonna have to pull the mic real close. I remember when I was on the other day, I could not hear you.
We have a long agenda, so. We have a long agenda, so.
Yeah, talk about this later in the, but I appreciate particularly Alton and with me earlier, talk about this stuff and no comments, sir.
So I have just a couple comments. Compliment the staff. Resource Committee meeting became very clear that our staff not only really talented, but also use all the tools that we provided them, SAP and the analytical tools. And they use that in the presentations. I'll talk a little more about that later. Compliment. Thank you.
The commenters hope everyone had a wonderful. Problem with the speakers. I did not understand the thing that. These things a little bit of echo. Yeah, there's an echo. I'm getting it as well. All right, Angeline.
I can hear you now.
I'm shy.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank Carla, Jewel, Mark, Alton, Sandra. John, nice to see you. And everybody else in the back, so welcome. It's all, really great to see everybody in the room. And I want to thank all our staff for the tremendous hard work they do. Okay. So yeah, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome and another. Hey, we have four happy. And did I
Glad
go
you
back?
did.
No.
Oh, no, no.
Okay.
Carl and I had lunch, Chair Randall today. Half, I would say. And, one out was how great Kendra is. She reports Alton or. So anyway, I mean, and it wasn't just like off the cuff, it was like 5 or 10 minute discussion about how great Kendra was. And then she did, of course, talk about how great Mark P. But she really singled out Kendra and great because talked about the whole board being impressed with Kendra, how smart she is and how she articulate well and talk and explain things so that they could understand. Oh, here we got, I don't know. General Manager's report.
Sean, we missed Sean.
Oh, Sean, I'm sorry, not here, we forget about you.
No, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Can't hear him at all.
Yeah. Okay, never mind.
That helps.
Yeah, I know. I think after all these. All right, Sean, speak loud.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now you're fading in and out, so I'll just be silent. I don't have nothing, anything to say right now with all the technical trouble. This is funny because I'm in a place where I have Fios internet and my DSL at home works a lot better. Thanks, Aaron.
All right, General Manager.
Okay, thank you. A couple items of note. On June 21st, the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved Loudon Water's application for a special exception pertaining to the construction of our water equalization tanks for the Broad Run, WRF. That is what prompted Chair Randall's comments regarding Kendra's presentation at the Board of Supervisors. And thanks too for Mark Peterson for giving tours of the site so that members of the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors could understand what we were asking. And it was a unanimous vote on the consent agenda. So hats off to them for a well-coordinated effort. It did take working, alongside Loudoun County staff, as well as the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So I personally want to thank all those that were involved in that. Also in June, staff participated as presenters and panelists for the annual Global Inheritance Leading Ladies Internship Program. The program provides selected high school students with the STEM internship opportunity during a 2-week development program to prepare them for college and also for STEM careers. Partnering organizations such as Loudon Water provided several educational sessions for local rising sophomores, juniors, and seniors to include interactive presentations. There were also Q&A panels that over 25 Loudon Water staff members participated in from multiple departments, including compliance, IT, GIS, communications, field service, water treatment, line maintenance and closed caption TV, asset management, and planning and engineering. Programs such as these provide a platform for educating future generations and are key to growing our workforce. So thanks to all of those participants as well. I also want to congratulate and thank Mike of you for participating in and being a member of a small group of leaders in the industry who worked diligently to create a Mid-Atlantic section of the Water Reuse Association. The charter for the section was approved by its board of directors on June 9th and includes utilities from Maryland, Virginia, and DC. We are now a part of the group founding member utilities. Once mature, the section will serve the legislative and rulemaking interest of Loudon Water and our ratepayers. This effort has taken a long time to come to fruition, and again, I want to thank all of those involved in making that happen. Some statistics. Year-to-date ERCs, Brian, you might have to help me with this, Brian. The year-to-date ERCs, or through June, I should say, 1,157. We added another 45 ERCs so far in July, bringing our year-to-date total to 1,202. Just as a reminder, we are projecting 2534 for the year, so we are at 9. And we are evaluating data center connections. And when we come back to you with the mid-year review at the August Finance Committee, information on that. Just a couple reminders. CIP committee is scheduled to meet on August 24th at 8 a.m. And the Finance Committee is tentatively scheduled to meet on Thursday, August 25th. Be confirming those dates and times with the respective chairs, and any changes, we'll send that out invite. And that's all I have.
Get into public comments. Believe Amanda wants to talk something about participation.
So a reminder about electronic. Virginia is a pretty strict state. There are, if you don't have a governor's declaration of emergency, then the only other exception to attendance is have to have a personal matter, disability, medical issue that prevents you from physically attending. And you have to notify the chair, and then it has to be reflected in the minutes that the basis for members not 2 per year, calendar year. That's the limit on how many each board. That's the current state of the law.
That's 2 per meeting, 2 for CIP, 2
Yeah.
for finance, 2 for. Okay.
That's
I think we discovered at the last CIP meeting, even if you are participating remote, it doesn't count toward the, so that's something that we want. Amanda's going to come in September with some about perhaps updating the committee charters issue, because with a committee you have. So we're as to reducing the number or and that seems to be an issue. But
Here, free, right? But if consistently I'm not here as a board member, and I am dialing from home, how does that? Oh, he's gonna have that conversation. Oh, okay, got it.
No,
That answers my
or
question.
maybe if you can't make it, committee, which
Or we could move the meeting or something. There's a lot of things we can.
Okay, the other scenario quickly is that, I know you just addressed that if there's a disability or anything life-changing event, something life happens, So with that being said, the board member is allowed only absentees, right?
Well, you
Just wanna
get
understand.
two business,
Yeah,
whatever, physical health problem, then you can participate any number of meetings at basis remotely. Still don't qualify toward a quorum, but you are allowed under FOIA to attend
Okay,
as often as you need for a medical reason
right, okay, thank you.
remotely.
And what amount patient you met? Even if you.
There's no, there's no minimum patient period, so if you call Jewel before the meeting, share to let him know, that's all you needed.
Can we, can there be an alternate that can step in any spot?
We set it up that personally.
But if we had three with an alternate, somebody that's a permanent alternate.
Yeah.
That they could step in if they're, to make a quorum. Anyway, it's an idea.
We'll add that to the menu.
Okay.
Okay, on that note.
Yeah, I didn't count.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Mr.
Oh,
Sakara.
right.
You microphone closer, so thank you so much. I'm sorry. You're welcome.
So Mark, and remember, we talked about this, you know, with Jonathan. Say, for example, you're for some reason, you know, not there. So how does that like, and can somebody be replaced based on, related to the question that you're asking, Jonathan? So,
Well, I'm only required to be in the board meeting, so
okay,
I'm not, I only show up at the committee meetings because I like to hear about them. But I'm not a member, I'm not on the committee, I don't make a quorum.
okay.
Yeah, I don't
Wow,
count.
that's preferential treatment.
Yeah. Marty won't let me. He says,
Got it.
"I'm not allowed to talk."
Thank you.
In other words, he's totally useless. when
Yeah,
he's-
No,
yeah,
no,
right.
it's just, yeah, the benefits of being a chairman. Gonna work towards that.
Also from Chair Randall's meeting, she would like all the supervisors to have a tour of all the facilities. Because I don't know how it correlated, but something about they're all running for their spots for next year for sure. Every single one of them are going to run. So they, I guess, I don't know how that correlated, but that's what we were talking about. And if you could edit out that I spilled my drink in the middle of a, no, I'm just kidding. All right. Jewel, any members of the public want to talk or?
No, sir.
Okay. Great.
I did. Yes, I welcomed him and asked him if he wanted. He just wants to observe. Well, you may like to introduce yourself.
Good. All right. If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right, Marty, board committee, CIP committee?
This report is the result of the quorumless meeting that we had the other day. But,
Don't dig the knife in too much.
and it's a very long report, so I'm going to try to shorten it as much as I can. First of all, we all know about the agreement between Loudon Water and Nova Parks for Beaver Dam Reservoir. The First Amendment that's discussed increases the total project budget from 10 million to 20 million and provides for conveyance of Nova Parks, Two Creeks parcel to Loudon Water. There are three approvals, which if approved, three approvals on the agenda, which if approved will allow the general manager, with the support of legal counsel, to fully execute the amendment, start the process on securing title to the Two Creeks parcel, and start the construction phase of the project. The three requested approvals are 4A, which is authorize the general manager to execute the Nova Parks Agreement Amendment. 4B, award the construction contract. And 4C, approve a professional design services contract amendment for construction administration services. I suspect that will be open for debate today. 4D, the next item is the award of a BOA task order for professional advisor for community systems ammonia removal. Again, you folks are familiar with that. We previously authorized implementation of design build for the community system ammonia removal project. Virginia Public Procurement Act requires that a professional advisor be hired to guide Loudon Water through selection of the design build team. The advisor which is selected will assist Loudon Water in all phases of the project. Staff selected Black and Veatch because of their past experience with the project and negotiated a task order for $160,820 with a 5% contingency for a total of $168,861. The CIP committee couldn't approve because of lack of a quorum, so we're just sending it to the meeting here. 4E, approval of professional design service contract amendment for Milestone Reservoir. The original contract negotiated with Arcadis envisioned a traditional design bid delivery. However, two changes affected the contract and caused realignment of the contract funds. One, the use of CMAR delivery, and two, delivery of the pump station site to the Two Creeks Trail area. The contract reallocations, and I think I've got this right, cover work that was out of scope of the original contract. Contract amendment is requested for an estimated cost of $5,219,254. The current contingency of $322,293 remains as it is not being touched, leaving a total budget of $11,665,109. The cost breakdown that led to these figures is in the report if you take a look at it. 4F is Milestone Reservoir Pump Station Architecture Update. With the new and more spacious pumping station sites, staff presented 3 updated building concepts and attempted to capture elements of trap rock architecture. CIP members in attendance have favored the new building footprint and shape and preferred option C. The last thing in the meeting was the capital spending summary report by Tom Lipinski. That's it.
Okay, and just for Marty, you probably didn't read it, but as a chair, which I didn't know this, when we don't have a quorum, I can decide whether something goes on consent or agenda. I kept everything on agenda except for the ammonia.
Oh,
I put that on consent. So that was, I felt that was a minor item, and the rest I know we'll have heavy discussion today.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. What's that?
Pardon me? No. Oh, did I? Okay, I did?
Yeah, you said consent, act, and agenda.
Oh, jeez. And I didn't get enough Coca-Cola. I spilled half of it.
Do we want to trust the guy
Yeah.
who spilled his Coke?
I know, I can't believe it. How many times did you yell at your kids for spilling a drink?
Very close.
Okay, Mr. Bonfils.
Yes, thank you very much. The Water Resources Committee met on June 30th at 8 a.m. in this room. All 4 of our members were present. In addition, Mr. Kovas attended. There were 8 folks from Loudon Water, and meeting was called to order at 8 a.m. on time. So the minutes were approved and all of that. The meeting was divided into 4 main parts. And the first part was about the reclamation and facility for Chesapeake Bay waste load allocation. And Kendra went through in great detail, almost painful detail, how we do really well, but then we get penalized for doing well because it wants to do even better. So I suggested that you watch the video of it once you didn't attend. There's a lot of great detail in that, and it's a topic that will continue to come up in how we work with the Department of Environmental Quality as well as the federal agency also. The next part of the meeting was the hydrant flushing program, and Jessica went through that program. There are a lot of hydrants. So it was very interesting in how it's done and how it balances for both the air and sediment in the lines, and also protects our fire protection over time. So it's worth watching if you weren't able to attend. And then there are the lead and copper rules. We have a new system. So Jessica went through all of that and what the compliance is on the program. So there will be some things that come up that we need to do. There's some sampling, some testing, some monitoring that will continue to happen. Potentially in some of the older buildings, there may be some lead in some of the lead lines or in some of the solder that was used on copper tubing. So there may be, some may show up in our system, show up as a result of our system, but our system is lead free. One of the nice things of having a new system. So 100% lead free, the likelihood of lead in private pipes, this is the summary, and the LCRR compliance requirements will continue, federal requirements. The fourth item was an update on PFAS, and that created a lot of discussion. Sue Crosby pointed out a lot of the health advisory and the things, and we also took a look at what's posted on the Loudon Water website, and there's a fair amount of information there. It's important to remember on PFAS that there's only 4, I believe, that are regulated of the approximately 600 to 700 PFAS compounds. There'll be more discussion of that today, and it is one of the topics that we'll continue to discuss in the Water Resources Committee and bring information to the full board. We adjourned the meeting right about 9:54, and we'll have our next meeting, said the fall, so it'll probably be late September or October.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Chairman, one quick.
Jim, you missed me. I was in that.
It's
Oh,
hard, I know, when the face is not right in front, it's like, oh, yeah, but you're right.
Jim, Terry. So I'm looking at the minutes and, okay,
I'll
I
correct that.
apologize.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know, I remember you made comments, you asked lots of questions. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I was just gonna add, the software that we have that's capturing all of these different metrics is just mind-blowing to me. And the fact that it's all been customized for us, it's not an off-the-shelf thing. And so I didn't realize we had a team of people in-house that are and so forth. But really, really, really helpful, really cool. And so I was just super impressed with that.
Very impressive.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the consent items?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Are you getting Sean vote?
Yes, I.
Okay, good. I was
texting
wondering.
Him to let him know.
Okay,
when I get
okay.
it.
All right, the next item on the list is probably the most important item on the list. Jonathan wanted it to go on consent and I wouldn't let him. So anyway, today we are honoring Jonathan, and I have a couple of items that I'd like to say beforehand. Jonathan, we are grateful to you for your efforts over the past 11 years. It is our desire to express that directly to you today. We've accomplished great things and achieved many milestones with your guidance and counsel. With your help, we've worked hard to forge valuable partnerships that will benefit Loudon Water for years to come. We have gracefully faced challenges and achieved many successes over the years, which we could not have done without you. By the way, Sue Crosby helped me write all this. This part I did, so this is probably not going to be as great as the first part. On a personal note, I sincerely appreciate all that you have helped me with over the past 11 years. Early in my career, I learned to be very accessible to my clients. You are the champion of accessibility. Whether you are on a mountain, Machu Picchu in South America, or hiking the Dolomites, you always found time to respond. For that, I am grateful. Please stay in touch and let us all know the successes of your new ventures. So on behalf of the board of directors, thank you, Jonathan. and we have a resolution to present to you. Resolution of appreciation for Jonathan Rack. Is that correctly said? Rock, I'm sorry, see? Didn't even know that after all these years. It's always been Rack. I never say your last name, that's why. Whereas Mr. Jonathan Rock served as general counsel of Loudon Water from March 2011 to July 2022. And whereas during his service, Loudon Water successfully managed growth in size and capabilities needed to fulfill its obligations to Loudoun County. And whereas Mr. Rock contributed extraordinary and invaluable knowledge and insight on legal and water and wastewater utility matters to provide a stable source of ongoing support and guidance for Loudon Water's priorities. And whereas Mr. Rock worked tirelessly with the Loudon Water Board and committees, staff members, and key stakeholders to successfully guide and to develop the organization. And whereas his passionate dedication to public service and continuous efforts to support public health through effective and efficient water and wastewater service delivery by authorities in the Commonwealth of Virginia is exceptional. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Loudon Water Board members and its staff express to Mr. Rock that their deepest appreciation for his leadership and highest esteem for the service and devotion he has so generously, effectively, and graciously given to Loudon Water. Be it further resolved that this resolution be made part of the authority's minutes, dated this 14th day of July, 2022. Can you take a picture of it? Make me look thin when I'm standing behind. And we have a little thing of appreciation, yeah. And two people who are going to sign this, and Sean is going to sign it too, so. Yep. Here, turn your mic on.
As you know, your legal counsel are not truly members of your board, but you all have been so inclusive over the years, and Carla as well. And it's been a true privilege. This is a terrific organization. I've very much enjoyed working with this board and the prior boards. You're all very different individually, but you all have a real sense of the mission of Loudon. It's terrific to see you labor to accomplish that. And I also wanted to particularly acknowledge the staff at Loudon Water, which is exceptional. You all probably don't see as much as I've seen in terms of working day-to-day basis, the depth of talent and knowledge that is in this organization, and comparing it to other similar authorities, it is exceptional. And I know that these terrific individuals aren't here because of the money. It's not their motivator. They're here particularly because of the culture. And this organization has an exceptional culture, very mutually supportive, very curious, very innovative. And I am sure that that will continue in the future years, but I really commend this organization for what it's accomplished and what it's going to accomplish. And it's just been a true privilege to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm the only one here that was here when you started. And you were Stanley Martin's, Stanley Franklin's sidekick for a while. And did you actually start in 2011, or were you here before that?
I started on the Potomac Water Supply Program, and
Oh, okay.
that was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And then when Stanley stepped down in 2011, so it's
Wow,
been great.
It's been great, yes. All right. Yes.
Sorry, we need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Your lawyer should have reminded you.
Yeah, really. I'll make the motion. And somebody want to second it? All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. And Sean says aye too, right? Okay. Okay, and right away, we're putting them under the gun for the first final First Amendment to site development, so
I think because it's my last meeting, you decided, or Carla decided to give me one of the tougher presentations today, but but it isn't, in my view, it's not that difficult. So what I'm presenting this afternoon is the proposed amendment to the site development agreement between Nova Parks and Loudon Water. And I think before I begin, I think Mr. Bonfils wanted to say something.
Yes, I'd like to make a statement if it's the appropriate time. Chair?
Sure.
Sure, okay. Pursuant to Virginia State and Local Conflict of Interest Act and Loudon Water's conflict policies and procedures, I have fully disclosed the potential conflict related to my service on the board of Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, and will therefore voluntarily disqualify myself from participating in consideration or voting on the amendment on the Nova Park Site Development Agreement.
Thank you. So as you remember, as we've discussed a lot before, the Loudon Water Board entered into 3 agreements with Nova Parks in 2019. These included the site development agreement, which we're proposing to amend today. Put them in my notebook in front of me so I remember the titles. The Declaration of Restricted Covenants and Reciprocal Easement Agreement, and the Option and Grant of Easements Agreement. And these are the 3 pillars of our relationship with Nova Parks related to Beaver Dam Reservoir. The site development agreement made the decision, and the board voted to approve it, to essentially have Loudon Water develop the reservoir park and to expend up to $10 million of money on the construction and design of the park, and in exchange to receive a number of different benefits from Nova Parks, of course, including their agreement to operate the park in perpetuity, but more importantly, to receive a variety of easements and monetary compensation to offset Loudon Water's expenditures in designing and constructing the park. And at the time that we entered into the agreement, the obligation on Loudon Water was to expend up to $10 million in funds for the design and construction of the park. As you all know, unfortunately, the construction costs have dramatically increased, and the total budget that is estimated for the completion of the park, including design costs, is now approximately $20 million. So what this amendment would do would be to increase the amount that Loudon Water would be obligated to spend for the design and construction of Reservoir Park, and to receive in exchange the Two Creeks property from Nova Parks. And if we go to the next slide, Alton generously agreed to do the slide turning. I won't read through all the numbers, but the important comparison here is the answer in response to question number 4, which talks about the value of all the Nova Parks contributions, the 10.5 million, and what the additional value we would receive by having the Two Creeks property and the cost savings that would be available for the development of the pump station for Milestone Reservoir. And so you can see that the total of these two numbers, 10.5 million and 14.7 million, exceeds the $20 million that we would be agreeing to expend for the design and the construction of the park. The next slide is a series of responses to questions that came up at the CIP discussion. And I won't go into all of the detail, it's in the written write-up, but I think that what the answers are indicating is that we already have an obligation in place, a binding obligation to proceed with the construction of the park. Because it exceeded the $10 million figure in that agreement, we have to negotiate with Nova Parks to determine how we address that overage. And so we don't have the ability to just say, we're going to walk away from this. We don't want to do this anymore. We have an obligation in place because of the prior agreements that the board approved. And what the staff is recommending is that this exchange, the exchange of receiving the Two Creeks property for the additional monies that Loudon Water will expend on the park, is to the benefit of Loudon Water and its customers. And I'd be happy to go through the individual questions and answers or address any other questions that come up. And I know Carla and Alton are also available to help address any questions. So with that, I'll go to the recommended motion, but again, be happy to discuss any items that relate to this.
Asking questions before.
We should make the motion. Second and then discussion. Oh, actually, I don't think it matters.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Either way, but it's from a parliamentary procedure standpoint, it's always best to have the motion and then have the discussion. So.
Okay, anybody would like to make the motion?
Second.
Okay, now discussion.
Back to the slide that showed you the new savings. 7. What's the breakdown of that between the value of the savings?
My understanding, and Alton can confirm it, is that this is the net savings, predicted savings on the construction costs for the pump station, setting aside what the value of the property is. This is solely the net savings after deducting the amount that's already been spent on design of the pump station. Is that the right way to express that, Alton?
I think the minor nuance would be this factors in, the other item the board will have later in the agenda, which is the amendment to the Arcadis professional services contract. So that figure, the 14.7 million, is net of all, design costs to relocate there to the Two Creeks property.
So it used to be 12 million, right?
Correct.
From
And
Clark.
that is correct. And as we've continued to optimize that design and refine cost estimates, those were very early estimates when we were before you prior.
So do you remember what the early estimate was from Clark?
We were presenting an earlier number of 12.9 million. So this is what it has grown to as we've,
It's gone up 1.8 million, and that's all because of Arcadis or some other issues?
I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood.
It's
the
gone
question.
up, so it's gone higher by 1.8 million additional. I'm just wondering where those savings are specifically. Is it Arcadis?
Those are us refining the design and optimizing the design and then reforecasting the construction cost estimate.
So just to be clear, that number does not include any value that could potentially be attached to the property itself.
Correct.
Okay.
Deducted that out of the equation.
Kelly has a question. Kelly, you're muted, sir.
Sean there or Earth to Sean?
There he is. Sorry, Mr. Kelly, you're still muted, sir.
I can't hear, sorry.
Thank you.
Aye.
Can text your cat his question?
In text.
Thumbs are fast.
Yeah, great question, Mr. Moody. So I believe the current construction schedule has the project completing in about 2027. So this is a construction cost estimate for the total project for Milestone Reservoir.
I did text him and I'll wait.
I'll go then, unless, did you have something else, Terry? So from my perspective, I'm still struggling with the valuations that have been assigned to things. We've talked about that some at various meetings. Nova Parks has assigned some values to these easements. And we've accepted those valuations based on what they've said they're worth. And maybe they're worth that, maybe they're not. I'm not comfortable with it. I struggle with it specifically because of both the properties and the easements and the values they're assigning to it. They feel frankly extortionary to me. And perhaps some would agree with that. But I struggle with values, right? So there's values, that's one piece. Even if I got comfortable with the values and we just go, okay, the values are fair and equitable and so forth. I'm struggling with using that value, that money, and really we're talking about in lieu of money here, because we're saying we're not actually stroking a check to Nova Parks for these things. We're saying we're going to spend money on this park, and that's our in lieu contribution. In lieu of cash, you're getting a more expensive park essentially, and we're putting values on that. And so even if I could get comfortable on the values for the easements and things, which let me caveat this real quick. I'm in 100% agreement that we should get the Two Creeks parcel. I'm in 100% agreement that we should get the easements, that they're valuable to Loudon Water. So, I mean, I'm totally there with everybody, right there. I'm struggling with the values of it. It's not anything at any price. So I'm struggling with the price, but I'm in complete agreement that we should get it and buy it and all of the things. So totally there. But even if I could agree on the values, I just as soon write a check to Nova Parks and let them do what they want with the money. If we say, well, we've committed to a $10 million park and we've got $20 million in value, just for round numbers, I say, write them a check for $10 million. Let them take the 10 million. They can put it in the park. They can do whatever. Instead, we're spending it on this gold-plated architect, which I don't think we should be. I've struggled with them from the beginning. We're spending a lot of money on these buildings, which I struggle with. And so those are my two hangups with this, which is why I can't support it as is. But those are my two big hangups.
I have a comment about that. I personally feel that the price for the project is outrageous. However, if we look at the price, we have to look in the context of what's going on around us. I mean, we're paying $5 for a gallon of gas. Everything's high. And if you look at the bids have been fairly consistent. We bid it twice. What I'm thinking is, as far as the price for the project, within the context of how we're living, it's okay. Is it outrageous? Yeah, but everything around us is outrageous nowadays. So do we hold off and don't do anything because the environment is outrageous? I think we should move ahead with it. And as far as land values, if we don't get the easements now, they're going to be more expensive in the future. We don't know how soon we'll be able to get this land from Nova Parks. And I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but I think we're getting a bargain, because the next time we go out to get it, it's going to be much more expensive. Last thing is, if we don't act now and we have to delay Three Creeks parcel again, this start and stop business with the project has got to cost us bundles of more money. And so for that kind of thing, I'm in favor of moving ahead with this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was kind of definitely on the fence in the beginning. And for those of you that were in the CIP meeting, all these questions were kind of my questions that I asked so that I could feel better about approving this, which I'm fully going to approve. Now, as far as the easements, I believe we've already used all the easements that were in that $8 million. And when we were doing these easements, we spent a lot of time on the value of these easements with Dale, and it was clearly explained at that time that the value of $8 million covered it easily. In fact, we felt we were getting, like Marty said, a deal. So, I mean, And then also the Two Creeks value of land isn't even in this number. So that should be totally off the table. It shouldn't even, we don't even really need to discuss it. We're not, that's not part of this meeting. But I'm fully going to accept this and vote for it.
Kelly has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Jewel. Mark, you just said the same thing I was gonna say. You know, when we first started talking about this, I struggled with a water authority building a park and using our customers' monies to do that, to construct a park. But as you said, Mark, as Dale explained several times, the value of the easements, and we need those easements, maybe not today, but certainly in the future, it all started to make sense. So we're spending today's dollars to get value for tomorrow. And I just want to compliment staff on the excellent work they've done to come up with a creative solution to move the pump station to another part of the Milestone Reservoir. Having gone out and seen it and see the value of placing it in the new location, it makes a lot of sense just from a safety standpoint, not just a dollar standpoint, but safety, ease of access, and so forth. And I thought that was a really creative solution to the problem. And again, just like we did at the beginning, we got easements today for money spent today, even easements in the future for money spent today. We're getting something today, which is going to save a heck of a lot of money in building that pump station. So I think it's a fair trade-off, and I'm supportive of the motion.
Bill?
I want to go back to what Jonathan said in the beginning. Jonathan, you said it's not like we can just throw our hands up and walk away. We have a commitment. What? So we committed to something and that's $10 million isn't going to work anymore. So we've done these things. And I compliment the CIP committee. I read every question. That was one heck of a meeting. That was really productive stuff. But if we did not approve this today, what is our other option? Because I'm not sure. I guess I thought we could walk away. I don't want to, but I thought we could. And you're saying we can't?
So the site development agreement states that we're obligated to spend up to $10 million for the design and construction of the park. It says that if those costs exceed the $10 million, and we've looked to ways to save money, then our obligation is to essentially renegotiate with Nova Parks to come up with some new arrangement. But we can't simply just say, "Yeah, we're not going to do this." And primary reason is that we've received easements, both in terms of options and in actual easements, that some of which we're already using from Nova Parks. So we've already gotten the exchange, and now would need to say, okay, we're going to give those back to you. We'll have to deed them back to you, or some unwinding of the arrangement. But that was my point.
Yeah, Bill, that was my exact question. What are the repercussions if we walk away? I mean, if we decide, to me, that's the $100 million question, because if we've gone down the road, where there's too much of a penalty, does it make sense? So really, that's where I'm looking at.
If I may, in response to your question, Mr. Byers, one additional thing that I think gets lost in the discussion is that, for the past many years, Nova Parks has been quite a partner with us in terms of helping manage public access out there at the reservoir. And that has been something that's been ongoing in terms of value to the authority alongside the easements, but often gets lost in discussion.
I have go ahead. I have a non-monetary comment. Having two public agencies cooperate like this is not bad PR for both organizations. It's not a monetary value, but it's there nevertheless.
Yeah, Marty, I was going to say that's part of the repercussions. If we walk away, that damages the relationship and the, when you're talking about the media publicity, that Loudon Water walked away from this partnership.
Exactly, yes.
Alton, I totally understand your point of view, where you're coming from. And in one concise word, that would be loyalty as well. So tied to the loyalty here, and I'm with you on this, and I say it out here out and loud. But keeping loyalty into consideration, I hear from other board members here, that we have to, as a board member, take into consideration the repercussions of that as well. So with that being said, loyalty is aside, we're here to do our fiduciary responsibility, taking loyalty into consideration. That's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Can you just remind me, how many buildings are we building at the park? 9 total structures. How many of those are habitable, or are gonna have people in them? We have 2 pavilions, 4 pavilions, boathouse. That's 5. What's the difference between the crew facility and the boathouse?
And then we have the restrooms and the welcome center, pavilions, building.
Then we have a maintenance building. How many of those are air conditioned? You see the bathrooms,
Probably
right?
4 of them, the bathrooms, welcome.
We have the restrooms, we have the welcome center. The boathouse is not conditioned, right? The pavilions are not conditioned. What else is conditioned? Just those 2. Yep. Right. Thank you. Yeah, and that's one, I'm just struggling that's 20 million for that. We got a gravel parking lot and we're not even paving paths. I mean, that's the thing people are gonna want the most is to walk around. That's why they're gonna go there and have mulch. So it's just the price tag.
So are you questioning the bids? You think the bid is crazy?
Yeah, I mean, and when we got the $14 million bids and we read through those and I'm looking at the numbers there, I'm just going, yeah, it is crazy. I'm going, they're just throwing numbers there. It doesn't cost that. It shouldn't cost that to build that. And so I struggle with that. I'm in agreement to build the thing. So I'm not suggesting that we should not build the park. I'm just suggesting that we can build the buildings we were obligated to build for 10 million or close to that. And that we don't need 20 million to do that. That's what I'm suggesting. That's my position.
But then you go back to the point that I made, that today's day and age, everything's outrageous.
And that's where I'm just not on the same page with it. I mean, I'm been in the construction industry. We built parks. I talk with guys, Land Designs here local. They're a firm, Dewberry Bowman. I talk to these people. These prices are ridiculous to me from my perspective.
So it's a proposal response. It's not our requirements that we've scoped in too many requirements that then have driven up the bids. You think it's actually them coming back and they're inflating their numbers?
Well, I can't speak to that. I'm just saying that the scope is in the document that we've agreed with.
Yeah.
And I'm suggesting that scope should be able to still be accomplished at $10 million. That's my contention. I understand we don't have any contractors based on the design that we've put out there, but we've put a design out there that's not your standard design. You go around Northern Virginia and you look at a pavilion, it's pressure treated lumber with a roof and it could be built cheaply. We have an upside down roof with all of these other features, which people think is cool, fine. It's expensive to do that. And I'm suggesting, no, let's go cheaper and do it for the 10 million. That's my position. But I just wanted to be clear that I'm not saying I'm advocating to walk away from the deal. I'm just advocating do a more cost-effective design that's not all this other stuff and do it for 10 million. That's my position. Thank you.
I'm last here. So last time when I came on board, right, we were talking about the design, and I do recall about the butterfly roof and all the other components that were added. Did we actually confirm the design? Because I'm lost here.
No, we
Yeah,
did.
we
And
did.
the issue is at the time, the current design that we have with the butterfly roofs and all
Yeah, yeah.
that was supposed to cost 10 million.
Right.
And then as we actually have taken it out to bid, we go, oh, it's actually 20 million. And so that vote that we had those months, years ago, was predicated on that design costing 10 million. That's what that vote was. And so here we are today, and I'm suggesting that we take the design, move away from it, which I think you and I may have been.
Yeah,
on
we
for
had a
the
very
longest time
lengthy
anyway.
conversation on that,
So
yes.
no surprise on that part, but I'm just suggesting simplify the design, make the design work for the $10 million. I think we could still accomplish our scope that's within our agreement for that price. That's what I'm suggesting.
Where can we cut cost here? Bottom line, like, can
Just
we
do
cut
simpler
costs?
buildings. Just do
Right,
simpler
so
buildings.
we're talking about the present value, the expected value and the future value. My main concern is the depreciation as well of that. I don't recall we talked about that depreciation.
I don't know.
Depreciation value is like when you build something, right?
Yeah,
With the
but-
maintenance and all, we don't want it to depreciate. Anytime there's a collateral,
Well,
it
all
has a
buildings are-
depreciation.
All buildings are depreciated, but that's not really our problem. That's Nova Parks. They'll be fine whether we build butterfly buildings or whether we build pressure treated ones. I mean, I don't think that's the issue.
And Jonathan, is that in the contract? The depreciation, the Nova Parks, I never heard of all this. I mean, and memory serves me right. I'm just a little, lost in the
Nova
maze here.
Parks is responsible for the maintenance.
Who's that? Nova
Nova
Parks?
Parks is
Okay,
responsible for the
Okay,
maintenance.
and that's put in, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, if I could weigh in, listen, we all struggled initially with the design, and the $10 million. I think everybody struggled with that. And I think when we finally got the contracts under bid and saw what the prices were, it was sticker shock. So I agree with Brent on that. And I completely understand where he's coming from, and I think his opinion is valid. But once we rebid it out and now we're at 20 million where it's doubled, I would not have supported that project if it wasn't for Nova Parks coming back and donating the property and saving us 14,700,000 on this construction project that we were going to undertake. So we've added 10 million to the project, which I'm not happy with. But the flip side is we've realized 14 million, almost 15 million in construction cost savings. It's going to be over a 4-year period. And then we also have the value of the property itself, which isn't even in this, which is somewhere between $1 million and $2 million. So for me, it's a $16 million. We added 10, but we're saving 16. So that, for me, that mitigates a lot of the things that my colleague is concerned about. And then I don't want to be repetitive, but the value of the easements, it's a very subjective thing, but I think having those, and as we move forward, they will appreciate in value. So even if you want to underestimate them now, I think they will grow in value as everything else does in real estate. The value of the property that they've contributed. And we made a promise and commitment to the community. We had a lot of stakeholder meetings 2, 3, 4 years ago. So there's a lot of people, I think, that are counting on us. And we talked about loyalty with Nova Parks, but I think, there's an obligation. We promised something, and I think we need to deliver on that. And I think, so I think that's important. We haven't even talked about the educational component that the park is going to provide. There's a lot of intangibles that are really, really hard to measure. And, it's hard to put a value on those, but I think it's expensive. But I think all in all, it's something that we need to do. And I think in the long run, we'll be happy that we did it. So I'm going to support the project, not without reservations, but support it nonetheless.
So if there's a chance for negotiation, right, that was brought up right now, like the word negotiation. If we were to go and negotiate, what are we negotiating with them then?
There's no negotiation.
No negotiation.
Yeah, we've already
Okay,
got a price
we're
from the
set.
contractor.
Okay.
The only
all
thing we
right.
could do is completely go for a redesign. To
Okay.
scale down the building, eliminate buildings, eliminate bridges, change the structure of the building to try to save some money.
Okay.
But
got it.
whether or not Nova Parks would, have they accepted the design that we provided already? So that might cause some issues as well.
The producer price index, this is going to shock you, it's actually dropping. Some stuff lumber's been going down for a while, but concrete has dropped in the last month. Is there, I don't negotiate the contracts, but is it possible that we're talking about something that's going to take a while to put up? Is it possible that it doesn't cost $20 million when we're all said and done? If prices drop? Or are we fixed price and that's what it is? And is that possible?
Elton may want to address it, but my understanding is that we have is it a GMP? It's a fixed price on the, lump sum on the construction contract.
Any other discussion?
Sean have anything to say?
Yeah, he had a couple questions.
Okay.
So we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye. What's Sean say?
All right,
Okay. And those opposed?
No.
It passes. All right. Next item. Where are we? Oh, the award of the construction contract. Stefan.
Good afternoon. I'm here to seek approval for the award of the construction contract for the Beaver Dam Reservoir Park project. Real quickly, want to go over some of the project elements. We have an entry road and a parking lot, our welcome center and restroom buildings. We also have 4 pavilions. 2 large ones are located near the parking lot, whereas the 2 smaller ones are going to be located near the reservoir. Our boat rental area, which includes the waterfront pier. We also have our crew facility with our 2 crew docks and our John boat dock. We're gonna have our pier on the northern end of that main arc and our bridge on the southern end. Our maintenance building along Alfred Road. And in addition to that, we have trails and paths throughout the park, as well as planting and bioretention basins. Quickly, I want to highlight the bid structure. As was previously discussed, this was a lump sum bid. We did have 21 different line items there, just for a little additional cost transparency once we receive the bids. In addition to that, we included 4 bid deducts as are listed there on the screen, just for added flexibility once the bids came in. So with that, we advertised the project for bid in May and received bids in early June. The 3 bids are shown on the screen, with Meridian Construction being the low bidder at just under $17 million. Diving into that bid a little more, the 4 bid alternates and their prices are included here on the screen, totaling just over $107,000. Are included in the base bid, and if we decide to move forward with any of the deducts, it will actually subtract from that number. After discussion internally and with our consultants, staff is suggesting that we don't move forward with any of the bid deducts. We feel like the value they provide outweighs the cost savings they would provide. And with that, I actually want to go a little more into about Meridian Construction. So they're based out of Herndon, Virginia. They do have experience constructing parks and features included in the park project. They've recently completed projects for the Loudoun County DTCI, Arlington Department of Parks and Rec, Fairfax County Public Schools, as well as a number of other agencies surrounding Loudoun County. We've conducted reference checks and references from all the agencies, provided positive feedback, and we are confident that Meridian has a good grasp on the project. They attended all of the site visits and pre-bids. In addition to that, I've had a conversation with their PM. It seems that they thoroughly understand the project, and we're comfortable moving forward with them. And with that, I just want to recommend motions before you. We're asking for a 5% contingency. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can I have a motion? Second? Any discussion?
So can
You're probably not going to vote yes on this one.
Got it. And Bill, you are correct. Just to remove any doubt.
All right.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
No.
I didn't say all those against.
stop it.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
on
waiting
Sean.
for
You're way on
Sean.
Sean. Sorry, Sean.
Jeez. Okay,
No.
now, those against.
Aye.
Angela?
No.
Oh, you voted for, okay. All right. Passes. Next. Oh, this is where I have to read my little thing. All right, pursuant to the Virginia State and Local Government Conflict of Interest Act and Loudon Water's conflicts, policies, and procedures, I have fully disclosed a potential conflict related to my employment at Bowman Engineering for only a month and a half more, and will therefore voluntarily disqualify myself from participating in the consideration or voting on the professional design services contract amendment for construction administration services for Reservoir Park. There is a part of this that goes to Bowman, so that's why I'm recusing myself. So, Mr. Terry Allen, Vice Chairman, is taking over.
All right, this is a tough one.
Don't mess up.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the professional service contract amendment? Second, any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say that I really would have liked to have seen somebody much more cost effective than Nelson Bird Waltz. They've been way too expensive. I've been disappointed with that the entire process here.
Understood. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion's
That was
passed.
quick. All right, next one. Oh, we didn't even want to see the presentation. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah, Savita, where are you? Online? Oh, there you are.
Down here.
Okay, great.
Nice to see everybody. All right, how do I, this way? Okay. So I'm here seeking a design contract amendment for Arcadis for Milestone Reservoir. So just a little background on how I guess Arcadis's contract to date. So this amendment is for additional funding that we need in order to be able to do the design of the pump station and associated facilities at the Two Creeks property. And the way we came about with this contract was back in 2014, when we were getting ready to start this project, we actually put out an RFP for engineering services. And we received a number of proposals, and staff ultimately recommended Arcadis, and the board approved a contract for engineering services for Arcadis. So all of that is really to say that this is a standalone or project-specific contract. This is actually not part of our BOAs, and we just kind of wanted to highlight that for you guys. So the contract, or the team, actually includes Arcadis as the lead designer, and then their subs, Schnabel, Urban, and Dewberry. And you can see this table that's up here is really just the fee that was presented back in 2015. So the board approved about $6.5 million for the design fee and about $323,000 in contingency. This fee included all of the elements that we needed in order to really start the project. So the preliminary engineering, a lot of the geotechnical work that had to be done, so all of the borings at the quarry, the final design, stakeholder outreach, and bid-based services, basically everything that would get us to be able to bid this contract for, to get a contractor on board. So we did this work in 2019. We got to about 60% design, and then for various reasons decided to take a look at the delivery method. Originally, this was a design bid build project, and we ultimately decided to go to CMAR. And I won't go through all of that. You guys were with us on this journey over the last 2 years through CMAR, so I know you've seen this slide before. But one of the things that was important in selecting CMAR as our delivery method is that we really wanted to maintain our investment in Arcadis. They had a lot of institutional knowledge, but what we really needed was a contractor to kind of help advise us. And so Arcadis has been a critical component of, they were in selecting our CMAR and kind of moving forward with the design. Yep.
Savita?
Yep.
What is the subcontract?
So right now, are you talking under Clark?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we have Clark, and is that the subcontractors?
Oh,
Or
so we, whoops, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. So we have some subcontractors under Arcadis, which is
Okay.
Schnabel, Urban, and Dewberry. They're the main subcontractors. There's a couple of other very small, like one-person type firms that are also doing some work.
Okay.
And then the subcontractors, I keep going the wrong way, I'm sorry. So the subcontractors listed here, those will be the subcontractors for construction. We have not, they are not on board yet. So this is
Okay.
just kind of showing what the overall organizational structure will look like once we get to construction.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that does help.
Okay.
Yeah, because previously I had to recuse myself because we had one project where there was subcontractor. Yeah, so I just want to make sure. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, thank
absolutely.
you.
And when we get to that point, obviously we can talk about whether
Okay.
that conflict will exist.
Very
again,
good.
But we're still a ways out from there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is just a timeline really for reference. It kind of just shows the major milestones that we went through as we pivoted away from design bid build into CMAR. And Arcadis was really with us every step of the way. So they were integral in the selection of CMAR. And we used some of the funding, and we'll go through that. All of the work that they did in supporting us was out of scope from their 2015 contract. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. So this is a breakdown of how the fee has been spent since kind of the beginning, right? So we have at the top the $6.5 million. We spent about $4.2, $4.3 million through the 60% design. And we had a remaining balance of about $2.2 million. We executed a second reallocation that you can see the CMAR procurement. That is all of the work that Arcadis did to support us in selecting Clark as our CMAR. The third reallocation then was the pre-design work. So that's the work that we've been doing and what ultimately led us to the selection of the Two Creeks site as the preferred alternative or location for our pump station. Once we made that decision, we really had to kind of kick it into gear to do some geotechnical work on that site because no borings had actually ever been taken on that property. All of the work, the geotechnical work that had been done before was really on the quarry site where we thought we were going to have our pump station. So that work is actually ongoing right now. We are in the middle of that borings work. It's probably going to take another few weeks to finish, but they've been doing that. And then the fifth reallocation is the preliminary engineering work and 15% design. So all of that totals about $2 million, a little bit less than $2 million. We have a remaining balance of that funding of about $250,000. So the sixth reallocation, or really this design amendment, or what we need to complete the design, is about $5.5 million, a little bit less than that. And so the additional funding that's actually needed is $5.2 million. And if you recall, I mentioned that we did have a $323,000 contingency that was approved by the board back in 2015. We actually have not touched any of that. That's not included in any of this accounting. And that'll just remain untouched unless we need it for some reason. Question?
Yeah. Could get like things just were around our neck. Would that be easier? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'd wear it in the bathroom. Yeah, you're right. So just quick question.
Yeah.
When Arcadis was first hired, we weren't doing CMAR.
No,
So these 3-4 allocations over here.
they're all because of
Okay,
CMAR.
that's,
Yes.
I got it.
So it's all, it was completely out of scope from what they were originally hired to do.
Suggestion.
So
We're not going to stop till we get to Atlanta.
I'm not going to dive into the details. There's a lot up here, but this is just kind of a summary at a high level of all of the various tasks that are in this additional amendment that we're asking for. I kind of want to highlight a couple of things that we are able to do a little bit differently or are different because of the nature of this project. So like, for example, our startup and commissioning support, Arcadis is going to provide more support than they normally would because we do have our contractor on board. We can actually go through a pretty detailed exercise and kind of dig deep onto how we're going to start up and commission this facility and mitigate any of the impacts to O&M, which, we always do during design, but now we actually have the contractor with us. So we'll actually be able to work through that in more detail. One of the other things I want to point out is there is an extensive amount of permitting on this project. We have permits with, obviously, local permits with Loudoun County and Nova Parks. We have state permits with DEQ, VMRC, VDOT, VDH, and then also federal permits that we have to get through with the Corps and with FEMA. And I have a little brief slide on schedule, and really permitting is the critical path through this project right now. The length of time to get through those, really what's driving the schedule. The other thing that I want to point out is the FEMA grant management. So, obviously we typically don't have a lot of grants on our projects. Arcadis actually was the firm that helped us receive the $10 million grant on this project. And so they're also going to be supporting us with the grant right through the process with all the documentation that we need to do, the quarterly reporting, any budget modifications we may need to do, reimbursement requests, et cetera, et cetera. We also will have to do an environmental assessment on this project to make sure we are in compliance with NEPA, and that is part of this task. So that's just a little bit more of a breakdown on what rolls up in this task.
Yeah, excuse me, Savita, I want to just get an understanding, for that sixth reallocation, that 5.5 million, what's the rough breakdown in terms of where most of that funding is going? Is it right there?
That's right here. Yes,
Okay.
that's what's right here.
So most of it is still in the design, okay.
Yes.
So
Of course.
Savita, I just want to take this opportunity to really thank Arcadis for helping, write the grant. It's not easy, being somebody in the federal government myself. I truly understand, the hardship and, the blood drying and the tolling of that. It's really difficult. So
Yes.
thank you, Arcadis, for, helping.
Yeah, to give them further props, we actually got no questions on the grant application, which is
Wow.
really rare. Yes,
Yeah,
they
really
did
rare.
They did a very good job.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, we just threw this slide in here. I think there was a question at the CIP, and I'm sorry it wasn't at the CIP meeting, but I think there was a question about whether we were anticipating these design phase costs during 2022 and 2023. And I just wanted to show that we do. I know it's a little bit hard to read on here. I do want to just point out that, if you do look at the CIP sheet now, it was actually developed last fall before we had our CMAR on board and when we thought we were still going to be building our pump station at the quarry site. So the CIP sheet this year will be more up to date with current information because now we have Clark on board and obviously we are further along in the design. So this is just kind of a look ahead. We're working on the design. Obviously, we're going to finish in about a year. And as I mentioned before, really the critical path through the project right now is the permitting. There's a lot of permitting in general, permitting takes some time, but we also know that at the state and the federal level, they're experiencing sourcing challenges. So some of the reviews may take longer than normal. So anyway, we're doing our best, but right now the permits are the critical path and we don't really have a lot of control over how quickly those. With that, I have the recommended motion.
I want to make the motion. Okay, and second,
This is Angeline. I'll second that.
okay. Questions? I have a quick question. I remember when this first started, we were all concerned about the plug and the pressure on the plug.
Yes.
Is the plug installed yet?
No.
Will the water go above the plug ever?
I think that it will, but I don't think there's really a lot of concern around that. I mean, we will be testing, we will be filling the quarry in stages during construction, right? And letting it sit for a while. So there'll be time to evaluate what happens with that plug. And obviously, if there's a challenge, we can drain the quarry down and then address.
Is there any way we can get Luckstone to buy in to this engineering of this plug, that they agree that it's just in case it leaks? We don't get sued by
Just fill the other quarry
Luckstone?
next to it.
Well, yeah, but they're still gonna be mining half of it.
Oops.
Nobody's
So-
answering that question.
So when you say buy in, are you saying just like be on board with it and participate?
No, I'm saying like,
Or-
hey,
or
we
pay.
agree that this plug's gonna work also. And so that
And their
we-
engineering look at it.
Yeah, I think we had talked about that they were gonna participate in
Indemnify
some
us
of the
somehow.
evaluation of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To date, I have not received a lot of pushback on the plug, but, you know, we will be meeting.
I
with
think
them
we ought to
soon,
get some
actually.
buy-in on it just for future,
Okay.
you know.
I wanted to add, that's a great question. And I think it's certainly been a two-way street, thus far in our relationship. One thing I think we talked about on the tour during the board retreat was, as our raw water transmission main travels alongside Corey D, they helped and partnered with us to install some sensors there to make sure their blasting wasn't going to adversely impact the pipeline. So we've had that kind of working relationship, and I think that.
So maybe Amanda's first job is to write something up that they can sign. Okay, that's all I have. Any other questions? Yeah, Jim?
You're talking about filling it, what is the timeline to fill it? It'll talk about commissioning in 27, mid-27.
2027?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That'll be a good question. I think it'll depend on how, so we'll probably fill it with water from the Potomac, right? And it'll probably depend on how much we're allowed to take it. It'll be really dependent on the conditions in the Potomac.
The natural filling of it right now.
It is
it's
filling now.
It's filling now.
Yes,
but,
it
you know,
is.
that was, me too.
Yeah.
That's why I was wondering how quick it might get up to the plug.
Oh, it won't get up to the plug
a lot.
before we're done with the work.
Okay.
2 inches a year.
Mark, somebody's building an ark.
Yeah.
You may want to get
Well,
that plug put in.
that quarry did fill during Agnes in 72
It did.
from,
But I-
from the overflow from the
Correct.
goose, yeah.
Correct.
That's why they build that high wall there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah, bump it out.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
Sean?
Aye.
All right. Next is information, no. New business. Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh.
We pausing or are we rolling?
They're all waiting for me to say something, I guess. So we wanted to give a little background on this new business item. It's rare that we ever have new business items, so this is kind of a treat today. But earlier in the week, maybe last week, Mr. Campbell, I'm not sure, Mr. Campbell sent an email regarding PFAS, and this is something, and our biosolids. And this is something that we touched on at the Water Resources Committee as part of our focus on water quality. Just with an article attached, 2 articles attached to the email. And, staff absolutely shares those concerns that Mr. Campbell has about PFAS. It's an ever emerging and researched topic. And so we thought what we would do is, for the benefit of those who maybe haven't heard us talk about PFAS before for our biosolids, we would just provide a little background information. Kendra and Elton put together a couple slides. And then certainly, this is Mr. Campbell's new business item, and we will turn that over to him after we kind of give a background on what it is and what we're doing with that. It over to Elton. or
Yes,
Kendra.
thank you, Carla. And I'll be brief here, but I certainly wanted to provide some background to set the stage and give Brent the floor, Mr. Campbell the floor. So wanted to start here. I think some of you have heard us talk about PFAS in the Water Resources Committee over the course of the past few years with regular updates. And so briefly, what is it? It's a family of more than 6,000 chemicals that have been manufactured over the last 80 years or so. They're pervasive. They're used widely in consumer products, from things we eat, the packaging for our food, coatings for carpets and upholsteries, and on our clothing, Gore-Tex type waterproof clothing. They've found their way into most corners of the environment across the globe. And so, here we're just trying to provide some contrast with a little bit of data. So this is some Consumer Reports data that is very recent and looks at the presence of PFAS in common food wrappers. So you can see kind of some of those levels here shown in parts per million. And then over on the right, we have been proactive about, for a number of years, looking at our biosolids, starting to get out ahead of this issue and do testing, and then take that additional steps further to try to understand this chemical. And so, this is just really a quantification of what our levels look like in comparison with something else that we, put our hands on many times. And so the second slide here is really just to refresh the board on what we do with biosolids from Broad Run. So we do not profit from the distribution of biosolids. They are looked at as and beneficially reused via land application. So these large volumes of essentially fertilizer of valuable resources for the environment. We have a vendor, and they, well, first and foremost, our biosolids are part of our permit with DEQ, and they're subject to scrutiny on a number of toxins and, within current regulations. And so they're permitted through DEQ. And then our vendor who hauls these biosolids and works with industry to do the land application process, they're also subject to vendor permit by DEQ. Pause there for a moment to ask if there are any questions.
So do we get inspected? Does DEQ come down and sample biosolids from time to time to see what's in there?
DEQ does not sample our biosolids from the facility, so they come in once a year and check all of our records. They ask if we're calibrating our instruments. They go through all Kathy's paperwork at the lab to know that our data is sound. What they do inspect is the land application sites. So there are inspectors that go to site and take samples to make sure, because those land application permits, they're very important. They control the rate at which the biosolids can be applied to the land. So on average, when a biosolid is applied, it's diluted about 200 times. So that concentration you saw there is even 200 times lower once it's spread out. But that is a nitrogen phosphorus based application rate. That is the one currently in the regulation. They will also, sample from the haulers' trucks to make sure that they're doing testing. So Synagro is required to test for the same toxins that we do as well, and they report that back to us. So they've got a lot of regulation, making sure that the biosolids are what they say they are, and we know exactly where they're.
And if they weren't, if you said they were one thing and the applier, someone down the line said, no, you're wrong,
Right.
that would be a problem.
It would absolutely be a problem.
Right.
And we would go paper to paper to try to
Figure out
prove
what
that.
happened. And that has not occurred, I'm assuming?
We have not had a discrepancy in data, but
Okay.
we have had a time when our biosolids did not meet the land application criteria, and we did address that immediately. Those biosolids were landfilled until we could address the issue, and it was an industrial contributor that needed to stop what they were doing. Once they did, our biosolids recovered and they're used.
Okay, and one last question. There's not a ton of regulation or not any regulation on a lot of these chemicals, isn't that correct? There's no
For
limit
PFAS?
for PFAS.
Correct, there's none.
So let's assume that changes as over time. That could cause an industry-wide issue, correct? Forget Loudon Water, that would be everybody that produces biosolids.
Absolutely.
And so could one assume that the people that regulate this industry would consult with this industry prior to putting limits on things if those limits are unachievable? Or are we concerned that they could potentially put limits that simply are not realistic?
That is actually part of the limit development process.
Okay.
Is they will consider what is technically achievable with available technologies. I would say Loudon Water is already ahead of them on that,
Okay.
right? And we know what technologies are out there to do this. It just will take us time to get to that. So it's really the timing of the action. But so what's been released thus far is just a health advisory limit for drinking water on PFAS, right? So that is what you consume through what you drink. Biosolids aren't included in that assessment, but a health advisory limit is also different than a maximum contaminant limit, which is the limit that we must then meet as a regulation. That process is not complete yet. Correct, they will be different.
And so we've heard a lot of words today, whether it's from Chairwoman Randall and others, you know, complimenting staff and how proactive we are. And, you know, this slide is really just intended to speak to that. We've been, for the past several years, we've first and foremost, we have very talented staff in-house, from PhD research-based staff, the Kendra, and many, many others across the organization that have been studying this for a number of years. We've been, you know, self-sampling and collecting the data, taking that data, trying to understand, okay, now let's take it one step further and look at source identification, point sources in our system and reduction measures there. As Kendra said, we're looking at treatment technologies at Broad Run. But we're also weighing, you know, our mission is shown here on this slide, and we have to balance the environment and sustainability. And, you know, the beneficial reuse of these biosolids, you know, it has a component of sustainability in the natural cycle. And so these are the things that we are looking at as we are evaluating this, and really speak to us taking a, you know, again, a holistic approach. And you know, in terms of, you know, the utility business and our organizations that Mr. Byers was, you know, alluding to, we're looking at this from a common sense approach. And so, you know, really just the key takeaways, this is my final slide, but, you know, again, staff has been intensely studying PFAS and addressing it for a number of years now. And, you know, we recommend continuing with the beneficial reuse. And this is based on our testing and then studying the current scientific research and really looking to EPA and their, you know, based in science risk assessments until those actions are completed. And, you know, we really want to, what can we do now is just to continue to support this national level research, continue to pilot treatment technologies, and also pursue point source reductions. And what does that really mean? We've already been, you know, out there in our system with contributors like, as an example, the landfill here in the county is a point source contributor of PFAS into our system. And we've been working with them, sampling at the landfill and starting the process and talking about pretreatment technologies we can put into place there and partner with them on to help get this stuff out of the system completely. And then lastly, you know, we have to consider what, you know, kind of stepping away from this current practice looks like in terms of, you know, it may generate in terms of fear in biosolids. And, you know, we think as an industry that the MCLs that ultimately come out will not be in alignment with what the current health advisories are from EPA. And again, those are on drinking water. So we have to think about that going forward. If we, you know, make a pivot here, how will we turn away from that in the future if those limits come back, you know, higher than what the current health advisory shows? With that, I'd like to open up to any further questions or discussion.
So right now we're spreading them. It's an agricultural operation. If we stop doing that, what would we do with biosolids?
The current alternate is to take them to the landfill.
Is that allowable?
It is allowable, but landfills are also facing down the same set of challenges. This chemical.
Right. The issue with the landfill is landfill space is valuable, right? And that landfill space is also protecting public health, right? It's the safest place that we can put things that need to be disposed of. So they are collecting PFAS from all the things that we have used and thrown away, right? That PFAS is going into the leachate, coming back to Broad Run right now, right? And so, from the PFAS point of view, but the other situation that we have to consider is the resource that we have and what our biosolids are, right? And the loss of that resource is a loss to agricultural life cycles and the environment. So to help put this in reference, you know, in the average month, we produce 330,000 pounds of biosolids. That is good earth material. It is carbon, it is nitrogen, it's phosphorus, it supports plant growth. In that 330,000 pounds, 0.02 pounds of it at this point are PFAS, right? It is a fraction of the beneficial material that we have to keep continuing to grow our food. And there has been a lot of research on what is done, what happens once those biosolids are applied, where does the PFAS go, how is it affecting plant life? We are monitoring all of that data as it comes out to make sure we know what the impacts are of the PFAS that we are distributing, but not responsible for causing. And that PFAS is there because we've removed it from the drinking water, right? So we have taken it out of the direct contact and at least gotten it into indirect. By putting it in the landfill, it still comes back to Broad Run. We still have to protect it from the drinking water. And unfortunately, in science, we are not able to hit zero. We can't make all this PFAS go away. It is physically impossible, but we can treat it to the best limit physically possible and set standards, set innovation about what quality we can reach, but we can't make it go away.
Mr. Kelly has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Jewel. Just a couple of questions. What was the catalyst for the health advisory issuance? What started that?
Yeah, this is the first step in that risk assessment making process. So not as up to speed on drinking water standards, but I think I have heard a really similar process happened with PCB, right? But the health advisories are telling people if you are an at-risk person and if you know your drinking source is over this health advisory, you need to look into taking action. But that action can be many things. It can be finding a different drinking water source if possible. But the health advisory was based on a person's lifetime exposure to these 4 chemicals, and only 20% of it can come from their drinking water. You're leaving 80% to come from those consumer products or from the air or from your food. So that person can also greatly reduce their PFAS exposure more than what the drinking water if they avoid packaging, right? That French fry package, the whole reason it has PFAS on it is so the grease doesn't run through it, right? And it has 1,000 times more PFAS in it than our biosolids does. And the biosolids hasn't even come in contact with them, right? That the health advisory is telling you, look into this, take it seriously. It's not saying that something hasn't been treated as much as it can physically be treated because they don't have that level yet.
Is the health advisory going to the different companies that manufacture products that use PFAS? Is that going to them as well to look for alternative chemicals that are not harmful?
And that is the completely unfair part of this situation is it's easy to permit the water and wastewater industry, right? They've already got this mechanism in place. So the health advisory is specifically for drinking water. All those manufacturers making that food packaging at this point are allowed to put as much PFAS in there as they want, as long it is not PFOA or PFOS. They picked 2 chemicals and have outlawed those. But after that, they can still use as much as they want.
And last question, what does Blue Plains do with their biosolids?
Theirs is land applied as well.
You know, any utility that doesn't land apply to biosolids?
So there are utilities that do not land apply. So very small utilities may be unable to treat to the level to meet land application standards. So they will have to go to landfill. There have also been utilities that have very high levels of PFAS, right? So the state of Michigan did a great screening of this, and it's industrially influenced biosolids are the ones really causing the major problems that you read about in the paper because the concentrations are so high, because they have a metal finisher that's just flooding them with PFAS. Those are being, in Michigan, for example, they're being landfilled. I also just wanted to say that there have been other utilities that have said, I want to be proactive, so let's stop land applying. Pima County, Arizona made that decision in 2020. They said, our customers are concerned that biosolids might contaminate our groundwater. So we want you to stop. We want you to study this and tell us what you find. So they hired the University of Arizona. They hired Jacobs and the National Safe Drinking Water Foundation, went together and studied their biosolids. And the results showed in that study that land that had not been applied with biosolids and only irrigated had 3 parts per billion of PFAS in it. The land that had been irrigated with biosolids had 2 to 4 parts per billion of PFAS. So if you water it, you're getting just as much PFAS as you're getting from these biosolids. I want to caveat that statement though, as long as you're not industrial influence. The thing that really reassured us on this study is our biosolids have even less PFAS than the plant that was used in that study. So we looked at that and we said, okay, this helps us bring confidence in moving forward with this decision that by not land applying these, it is very unlikely that we're going to improve the quality of the soil. The water itself is already putting the PFAS there too. And after that, Pima County, Arizona made the decision to continue land applying their biosolids to get the agricultural benefit of the product that is produced from wastewater treatment.
Ask a question. Ask the other end of this.
An absolutely complicated question to answer, but I am in no way qualified to say what the health effects of PFAS are. That's why we have the MCL risk assessment process in place, because it takes scientists of all levels to figure it out. But they are extremely conservative when doing health advisories and risk assessments out of necessity. It is important that we control PFAS, but in the ways that make the most benefit to protecting human health without throwing away the resources that we have here on this planet. There's only so much phosphorus to go around, and having a long-term plan that should go into a landfill is not a sustainable option. And we can't stop producing biosolids. That is part of wastewater treatment. So if we want wastewater treatment to be able to support our children's drinking water, then we have to find a process to make these biosolids reusable. And when we talk about the research that we're supporting, there are teams working as fast as they can on this. And we're supporting all of them either financially or contributing data as we can, so that the right people from our side, from the let's make sure we know the PFAS that we have spread, how it transfers into the soil, how it might transfer into the food crops, so that we can scientifically decide what is the right rate to land apply this and get the benefits we need.
So Mr. King, you were going to be next, but
No, these
no,
are
I'm
good questions, and Kendra knows a lot more than me.
I think
Is there
the
any more
floor is
questions?
yours.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. It's Independence Day and I'm at home using the Wall Street Journal. I'll read you this. And this is what I sent to Carla and Mark, and so jumps out at me. So it says, today, Maine is investigating some 700 sites for potential PFAS contamination from spreading sludge known as biosolids beginning in the 1970s. State has found PFAS in milk, eggs, and beef, as well as venison and fish. Several contaminated farms have shut down while others are struggling. Chemicals have been linked to health problems, including kidney and testicular cancers, thyroid disease, and high cholesterol. Called forever chemicals because they accumulate in people and animals and take a long time to break down. Last month, the EPA sharply lowered the amounts it considers safe for 2 PFAS chemicals in drinking water, levels that can barely be detected. A whole bunch of content here, but so I'm reading that, and I think it was Pam Kennel, like a year ago, something like this. I forget. But we were having a presentation or whatever, and she kind of touched on some of this, and it wasn't even on my radar screen at the time. So it's been on your radar screens a long time, not me. So I'm new to the. But And so we've kind of talked about it here and there over the months, and it's kind of like, yeah, we know it's a problem, but there's not really a good solution, so we're doing the best we can, and that's just the best we can, and that's all fair. That's all fair. And so, but I'm reading this and I'm going, we know this stuff's not good. And now, this specifically says that, this is much higher concentrations than what, and Kendra and Alton explained that. You know, this article doesn't say, and the data that at least you guys had was from Michigan and Arizona, so we don't know what Maine's doing and what data they have and so forth. But presumably from what's being described here, this is industrial, this is much higher concentrations than we have. My understanding from what you all had shared is that we have, in our biosolids, we have concentrations of 50 parts per billion. Is that accurate?
Correct, yeah.
Total, right. So we got 50 parts per billion in our biosolids. And then we have EPA, whatever it was, a couple of weeks ago, coming out and saying that the health advisory, which is not a law, but it's an advisory for the PFOA and the PFOS, which are these two subcategories, you know, that their recommendation is not to exceed over your lifetime 0.002 parts per trillion and 0 parts per trillion. And so,
Biosolids?
drinking water. And so, Alton and Kendra were very kind, gave me a couple hours of their time earlier in the week. And this thing, you know, I remember being in the Shenandoah River with my dad growing up, and he said, hey, we can't keep the fish. We'd go and, you know, and you catch a bass or whatever. It's like, Dad, let's take it home, we'll eat it. It's like, no, you can't. There's this thing down in Front Royal, and there's these PCBs, and it's like, what is that? I don't know. And so that, you know, somebody back in 1970 or 80 or whatever thought it was a good idea to take industrial strength biosolids and spread it all over Maine. And I'm sure they were well-intentioned, and I'm sure at the time that the science supported that. And so my overreactive self is going, we know it's there. We don't fully understand the implications of this. There's all these studies ongoing. And so it might be over time that these studies prove out to go, Brent, you're way over concerned about this. It's not a big deal. Concentrations of this level, or it might be, oh, you know, it was, you know, wasn't a good idea back then. And we don't know. And so in the interim, and we asked this question at the Water Resources Committee, it was, okay, well, what's the option? Well, there's no good option, it's landfill. Well, why don't we do that? Well, for one, it's like a lot more expensive. Like, well, help me understand, what are we talking? And it's roughly $500,000 a year more. We're paying $500,000 to Synagro a year. And staff, you correct me if I'm out of whack on any of these numbers, but $500,000 a year, we're paying to Synagro to haul off our biosolids. It'd be an additional $500,000 if we said, don't land apply it, take it to a landfill. So talking $1 million a year. So that number didn't scare me. I go, that's fine. We're not talking huge money here. So, okay, what are the other reasons we shouldn't do that? And then it's stated, again, correctly, so landfills aren't sustainable. You fill the thing up and then that's it. You got to then do a new one. And, you know, Jeff Bezos was on TV a couple of weeks ago. Hey, we're going to send trash to the outer space on these things. You know, great. But that's all we can do right now. That's all we do with all our toxic waste. And we got plenty of it, so it goes in landfills. From my perspective, I go, well, we're not really sure truly about the long-term health effects of this thing. I'd like to contain it. And we're spreading it all out over the fields. That's not containing it. We're spreading it out all over land. Maybe we regret that at some point in the future. It's coming in contact with the food supply. What this article and some others I read suggest is that whatever you put on the land, some amount of that is absorbed by whatever crops are growing on the land. And then when the cows are eating the hay that was grown on this was the example in Maine, the cows then get the PFAS in the meat, the milk, and so forth. It's with the fish. And then this stuff it's why it's a forever chemical. It just keeps going through the various hosts. And again, maybe in our situation, maybe the quantities and the concentrations are so low that we go, it's okay. It's okay. For from my perspective, I was gravitating and going, I'd rather spend the $500,000 a year, put it in the landfill where it's contained. And I know it's not coming into contact with the food supply. We buy a lot of food, my family, we got the 6 kids and everybody else. We buy a lot of food from local farms, a lot. And if I knew that whatever farmer is growing whatever berries, whatever crops, and he's fertilizing his fields with somebody's sewage, I wouldn't want to eat it personally. And again, maybe I'm just overreacting and maybe that's just me. But that's me. That's where I'm at on this. And so I was going, let's put it in a landfill, even if it's for 6 months, 12 months. We understand that that's not a long-term solution, and it's not. And maybe it's and it is, it should be for another meeting. Kendra, Alton, there are some long-term solutions. There are. Some of the things you all discussed could be really long-term solutions, but they're long-term solutions. And I think part of the recommendation from staff here is that we have a work session where we can spend more time talking about those and what's involved and time and costs and all this. I'd like to see in the short term, us discontinue the practice of land applying these biosolids and put it in a landfill. And that's me. So that's kind of where I'm at on this. And again, if I'm wrong, the two negatives there is we're filling up somebody's landfill faster than it would otherwise, and we're spending an extra $500,000 a year that we really didn't have to spend. That's kind of as I'm looking at, that's the downside if I'm just overreacting and so forth. On the other side, if we are wrong and there's actually long-term health implications here, and the effects of these small concentrations are greater than we currently know, then there's much longer and more significant health impacts. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at it. You all can agree or disagree. That's it.
What would be the economic impact on these landowners if we don't land apply?
That is something I am not sure of, is what the cost of fertilizer is for land applier or what they are paying to Synagro. But I can try to get back to you on that, working with Synagro. But I would like to reply to a couple of things in that statement. One, just because we're on the public record, and this means a lot to me, biosolids are not sewage. They are treated biosolids, and they are a natural part of the wastewater process. So raw sewage comes into the treatment plant. That is sewage. We grow microorganisms, naturally occurring organisms that are in those streams at higher concentrations so that they consume the contaminants from the sewage. So the majority of biosolids is just a naturally occurring microorganism. It's why the majority of it is carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And I know it is complex and confusing. Small fractions of this do contain, those pollutants that have been just absorbed onto the solids. The negative effect that can also occur from the actions taken here is Loudoun Water is a leader in this industry. And when we take our biosolids and put it into the landfill, we are indicating to everyone that we believe something is wrong here. What scientific basis do we have to say that something is wrong here? And we want to show you that our biosolids are not safe to land apply. And because our levels are so low, that means everybody shouldn't be. I have no justification that I can tell someone that, right? The decisions we make here will impact a lot of people. And we want to make sure that we're not creating fear where it isn't necessary, but we always want to be conservative. I do want to get that PFAS out. It's why we've worked for the last year to say, how do we accomplish this? How do we get this level as low as it can physically be? Because that's the Loudoun Water way. And going through this process has really forced me to think through what are other ways we can be innovative? How should Loudoun Water be innovative? Throwing away our biosolids is not that. That would put us at like the lowest level of wastewater treatment, right? What we could be innovative with is how do we renegotiate our contract with Synagro so that we have more control over where it's going? Maybe we pick selected crops that we would like our biosolids. Let's lead the industry in the best way to try to manage this, to further try to protect our food source, to set some examples that other utilities can pick up. We may be able to do this with a landfill that has space. Someone else may not, right? And a solution here really doesn't solve the problem for humankind. We need an industry-wide solution that protects everyone's public health.
But you said something when you were talking about the landfill, you used the word leaching, that it
Leachate.
leaching. And my question is, you put it in the land, you haven't contained it. You didn't contain anything. It's going to go into the water table. And why isn't it going to go into the water table?
The leachate is collected through a system. So new landfills, built after a certain time, have liners in the bottom with
Yeah.
the French underdrain.
Okay.
And
But-
that leachate is actually one of our sources of PFAS right now. It is pumped to Broad Run. So what we want to come in and do is put in a pretreatment system there. So it's easier for us to treat it when it's in that condensed stream than it is when it's in all of Broad Run's wastewater.
Okay.
And that's what Mr. Campbell is saying is, well, if we start putting our biosolids in there, we're containing it, right? We're getting it all into that leachate and taking the PFAS out when we pre-treat the leachate as well as we can. We will never get that leachate down to 0.
So if you put it in a landfill and it's contained, eventually it comes back here and you put it back in the landfill and it comes here. And the idea is for that period of time, let's call it a short-term solution, it's contained. Okay.
And that's in a perfect world, assuming that we
Right.
can work with the county and have them agree to take our volume of biosolids. But in the interim, immediately, in other scenarios, our vendor or a future vendor will be taking that to a landfill that's the lowest cost. And, as it leaves our area, it leaves our control. And,
Right. Is it possible that the main example, which is somewhat scary, what you read, that is a little terrifying. Is it possible that Maine isn't treating or wherever that came from, that Maine doesn't treat its wastewater like Loudon Water does? Is it, because you said sewage, is it possible that the reason their concentrations were allegedly higher was because they didn't treat the wastewater like we do?
There are a lot of hypothesizing about what's going on in Maine, but the data is all locked up in litigation, so we really don't know. But what you can, everybody's hiding their data, right? So you are unable to tell, everybody calls it all biosolids. That means you don't know if it's biosolids with 50 parts per billion like we have, or 200 parts per million when it is industrial influenced. Not only are those going to affect, the ultimate outcome of the milk and the cows, but the transmission process is even different. Things move by high concentration to low concentration, right? So when you've got a little, it's not going to move near as much as when you got a lot, and people aren't distinguishing between the two biosolids. So it's even hard to find land to test this on because someone has to have meticulous records so that you can sort out, well, did they take a load of something because you can even get stuff called biosolids straight from the industrial source. And that is the scary stuff that is unregulated, that they didn't even have to tell them what was in it.
Kendra, so first of all, Rand, thank you for sending that article. And I did get a chance to read that. So, question to you and to her is, Maine actually did ban, right? They banned the PFAS.
They banned land applications.
They
stopped
banned land applications.
of biosolids.
Okay. Thank you. So they're doing something about it.
Absolutely. So they've
Yeah.
put it in the landfills. But again, those landfills don't have pretreatment like we're talking about putting in. So they have made a cycle where they're just going to continue putting the PFAS in the landfill. Landfill goes to the wastewater treatment plant. Biosolids, they've trapped it in a loop.
Now, one more question here, very important. Do you have any knowledge about what they're doing about this in Virginia? Because I haven't heard anything.
So Virginia is waiting at this point. So there have been probably every year in the legislature, right? Someone brings forward some laws to try to put some PFAS regulations in place, but Virginia DEQ is waiting on the EPA's numbers. And then Virginia does plan to take suit and put in place the MCLs that the EPA has. Other states, I'm sorry, did I misspeak on something?
I just wanted to mention that DEQ is going out to industrial users. They're doing surveys. So what they're trying to do is get really the only way to solve this problem and way. So they're starting to look at all those industries and their numbers, and EPA at the same time is developing like treatment standards. So kind of all coming together, and DEQ is really supportive of taking a measured approach.
That like surprises me from a policy point of view that if one state or two states have taken action, you know, in this country, how we do is copycat. One state does that, the other, I call it copycat, sorry, new word for many Americans, but that's my little say on this. We do a copycat. When Michigan does it, Maine does it, we're gonna copy them because if they're doing something right about that, then we're doing something right here about that too. So
Yeah.
then, you know, it goes to all the other states and then we're united in this.
So we'd just like to add, Michigan chose a different path than Maine. So the states are very divided on what the proper path is. And so what Michigan did was they just made everybody start sampling. They published all their data. They went, knowledge is power. And they looked at those big industrial users and they focused their data there. So when they did that, we checked Broad Run, right? We said, okay, where does Broad Run fall with what Michigan's doing? We are one of the lowest levels on theirs as well. So that, again, gave us more confidence that, you know, we watched what they did. Maine has a serious problem, right? And because their problem was so big, this was what they felt was their only option, was we've got to stop this till we can get a handle on it. And then they likely will come back with an approach. But it's painful. And at this point, Virginia has not demonstrated a problem of that size to necessitate it. But South Carolina, some other communities where the problem is significant, the action has been quite swift, but greatly different.
Related to the industrial proponent, like, you know, what's their income generator in terms of the industry, right? Every state has sort of primary, you know, industrial income generations that primary to them, you know? So is that related to that too?
I don't know that I could say that I have seen that big of a link up, but the by industry, we know who the PFAS generators are, right? So
Okay.
there's 7 of them being highly targeted by everyone right now.
They are.
I don't actually know the full list off the top of my head, but it is mostly, you know, electroplating, metal finishing, this type of heavy industrial work where we've scanned our service area. It's the landfill,
So back to Maine.
like 3M, those type of
So
manufacturers.
was Maine's decision purely political? Because from what you talked about, it sounds like it's just going to the landfill, which is going back to the water treatment plant. And if they're irrigating with that water source, the PFAS is going back, instead of being in the soil, it's being, so are they really doing anything? Is it making a difference?
No, they just wanted to show that they could do something. And so it was an.
Sometimes that calms the storm.
Okay, I'm gonna break it to you guys. Glide Dental Floss has PFAS in it. So if you're using the
Glide.
Glide Dental Floss, you are rubbing PFAS all over your teeth every time.
What do
We've got to stop that.
what do we,
Just wanted to.
Back to the kind that gets stuck in there and then you're like all embarrassed because like you can't. you
yeah,
know.
and then you rub more PFAS.
So just a couple things. Just want to make sure I am on. Sean had to drop off. He is supportive of letting the staff continue to study an issue and continue to land apply for now. He just wanted to make sure I said that. And in my opinion, I mean, it's definitely a concern, and everybody knows I don't want to be on the front page of the Washington Post ever. But at some point, you know, I have to totally believe in our engineers and our scientists at Loudon Water and our new legal counsel that you guys know what you're doing. And I'm not going to, make a decision based on an article in about Maine. And also, Brent did talk with Chair Randall, I guess yesterday or this morning, I can't remember, and we met with her for lunch. And of course, it was a topic of discussion. And she was in agreement that we have you, Kendra, go and talk with the Board of Supervisors. You're going to have her come in and that we talk about all this and then we work as a team together to figure out what our next steps are. And, because it's not just us, it's Loudoun County, it's, what we want to do. And frankly, I don't believe that Fairfax, Prince William, I mean, they're all land applying they're biosolids. And, not that I think Fairfax County is better than us, except they had one of the greatest engineers ever come out of Fairfax County Water. And my wife used to work there too. But anyway, yeah, so I just want to, yeah, I understand and it's, it's the fright that you come up with for everything. And I think we just need to find out more information before we just radically change things that we do. That's just my opinion.
It's on. Good. So I really agree with everything that you just said. I'd like to keep it as a additional topic on the Water Resources Committee and use that as a mechanism to monitor it and report back to the board at our meetings. So it's something that I've been following for a long time, but I don't think the science is settled enough to make a real solid policy decision.
I'd like to jump in real quick. One of the ideas that Kendra shared and Alton when we met was, and again, the Loudoun landfill, as we understand it currently, it's going to fill up by 2066. So that's the life expectancy. The volume of our biosolids is pretty significant. So roughly 7 tractor trailer loads of this stuff. Did you guys ever figure out how many I think in my mind, I know what a mound of 100,000 cubic yards looks like. Did we ever translate that to cubic yards or no?
I translated it to cubic feet. It's 1,400 cubic feet per truck.
Just, I know that the landfills look at these things as cubic yards. And so as they're calculating out into the future, okay, we've got, 34 years worth of space. Maybe that, and if we said, well, here's 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, whatever it is of our biosolids, well, then that impacts that. How much, I don't know, but that'd be a helpful thing to know. But the idea with the Loudoun landfill, as was suggested, is there's a pre-treatment facility that we would build. Not super huge expense. A lot less than that. I don't
We
want to put,
anticipate less than that.
yeah, maybe on the order of magnitude of 5, something around that ballpark, something like that. And again, Kendra, you just step in if I'm out of school here, but it's easier to treat it in higher concentrations than lower concentrations. And so if the stuff is all in one place, we've got all the household trash, the McDonald's wrappers, all of this, right? And it's all in the landfill. And there's a clay cap there. It's not leaching into the groundwater and so forth, coming into the wet well, and then it can go and be processed with this granular activated carbon. We can remove what? How much? 50%? We don't know. Any
No
idea?
number I can throw out there.
10%, 50%? We have no idea.
Say maybe 50.
50%, something like this of the PFAS coming out of the leachate. And I go, oh, well, I like that. We're getting 50% of it out of the system. We're keeping it contained. It's not being spread. Again, for a relatively reasonable cost. In my mind, those aren't big ticket costs. The improvements, whenever we talk about it to Broad Run, phase 3 and all that, those are large numbers. Those are 100 million numbers. This is small, and that appeals to me. So clearly everybody, clearly everybody would like more time to discuss this and so forth, but that was an intriguing idea to me. We have the landfill. We don't know what the impact would be in terms of how that would shorten the life expectancy of it. But if we calculate that out and it's nominal, and you say, well, we just took 2 years off it or whatever, okay, fine. Then we build a pre-treatment facility. That's interesting. So there's some things I think that we can explore in the short term. Again, maybe we decide, it's not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze. But I don't like, it seems like the science on this stuff, we have to wait until a whole bunch of people get cancer from something before we can definitively say, yep, that causes cancer. And I'm more of the preemptive mindset of going, I want to get at it before we get there. But I understand then there's not science there to back it up, and there's not. So
I'm kind of in agreement a little bit, Brent, with you, is that, from my perspective, I'm thinking that it'd be nice to know what the costs are to consider putting it in landfills. So you have it in that, while we don't know. So it's almost precautionary period, for maybe 2 years, and maybe in 2 years, you'll know one way or the other, then you can change your course. But as precautionary period, it might be nice to do something.
Staff is fully in support of pre-treating PFAS at the landfill. And
Okay.
within a year to year and a half, that will be required federally that we do that.
Okay.
So all we can do now is do it sooner than federally required. The issue that staff has is doing that pre-treatment and then still continuing to send our biosolids to the landfill, right? The reason why we want to pre-treat the landfill is to make our biosolids better so that it can be land applied, right? We kind of break down in the cycle if we do all this treatment to improve the biosolids and still just throw it away. I went through a little downward spiral yesterday where it doesn't even make sense to digest it anymore because we're just throwing it away. All that energy, time, effort, infrastructure isn't needed if we just put it in the landfill. So all that effort is done to make it a usable product to support growth, life, and make wastewater treatment sustainable in the long term. But yes, the landfill will absolutely be pre-treated. Our to date thought in waiting was to ensure we knew best technology to use and the full impact it would have on Broad Run. At this point, we haven't been able to identify the exact percentage of reduction we would get at Broad Run from removing their PFAS because we wanted to make sure we made the right decisions at the right time. But to be proactive and be ahead, we can absolutely decide that this is the right thing to do. We'll go ahead, we'll overbuild a little, be a little conservative, and just get this thing in place as soon as possible and produce the best quality biosolids that we can.
And I'll just add, and make no mistake, we've been in discussions with the landfill. I can't remember if I said that further, but we've been partnered with them for well over a year now, talking about this issue, beginning a sampling program, again, in support of collecting the data and running the mass balance and understanding, the steps necessary, again, to stay out ahead of federally mandated regulations. We always hope to be out ahead, and that's part of our core mission, so.
To me, this all sounds like, when we were talking about climate change, but everybody was like, okay, science supports it, but I don't, and, we had that argument. It seems something like that to me, right? Where we're waiting for, at least for Virginia, we're waiting for the science, but the signs are unmistakable, right? And, inaction, everyday inaction, is burdening a lot of people out there. We just don't have the numbers. So, yeah, it's very depressing now that I know about it. It's very depressing. One more thing with the Water Resource Committee, can we have this as an item that we continue to work on? I mean, what's the plan for Land and Water to move forward with this and our position on the board?
That's what staff's recommending. They'll take it.
Yeah.
CIP, water resources, and continue to discuss it, which is fine.
Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I'd like, even at a minimum, and again, maybe you'll disagree, but I mean, at a minimum, I'd love to know that when I go to whatever his name in Lincoln and buy his berries, or, we go over to Percival and buy the ears of corn or whatever. I'd like to know that I'd like to know if they're using biosolids to fertilize their crops. I know Root and Marrow Farm in Lovettsville isn't, because he does all his own fertilizer and he does all his own composting and he does the no-till stuff. And all this stuff. We get all our milk and eggs from Rappahannock. There's a farm. That stuff, but, again, that's just me as a consumer.
Yeah, in fact, our guys, we don't know if Fairfax County is bringing their biosolids.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we don't.
just to clarify on the Prince William Service Authority and Fairfax County, they are not land applying their biosolids because they are incineration facilities, right? So they are burning their biosolids, just those two. But we can use DC Water as an example. We can use Leesburg. We can use Percival. I can give you a list of where Loudon Water's biosolids have been land applied. That is not going to answer for those farms. We're not land applied here in Loudoun County. And under our current Synagro contract, we do not control where it is land applied. Synagro maintains the agreements with the farmers and maintains those properties because it is an extensive network. But I would say that's where Michigan, they did it right. They said the power is in making sure the farmers know what's in their biosolids, and then the farmers could answer that. But in Virginia, that's not a requirement. So marsh farmers are just going to be able to say it's biosolids, but they won't be able to tell you what is in there.
So if we come to the table with Synagro and we negotiate, you know, we need to be really making sure what we're negotiating with them. Because negotiating in itself is not pretty at all, and especially in this case. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, right, as I understand, again, Steph, jump in, but they take the stuff, we pay them, and they're land applying it, and that's what the contract says they can do and then in exceptions, wet weather, things like this, they can then landfill it at their own discretion. But that's kind of the current contract. So if we wanted to direct Synagro to say, no more land application, just want you to put it in a landfill, we could do that. Then they're going to say, well, it's more money. Then we might want to say, well, we also would like to know what landfills you're taking it to. Fine.
Right.
And then you do a little bit of due diligence on the landfill. You go, because current landfills are heavily regulated. You don't just build a landfill nowadays. They're heavily regulated. They're very well designed and so forth. You go, oh, okay, it's a good landfill, fine. Something like this. But so that's all stuff we could do if we wanted to, if we thought it was appropriate. If we don't think it's appropriate, we don't do it. But those are things that we can continue to discuss if everybody feels it's appropriate.
Paying them. Yeah, we can go right and talk to them, you know, negotiate, you know, with the power of the purse. I mean, because we're paying.
We can
right?
do it, but again, staff's contention is we shouldn't be putting it in landfills, and that the quality of our biosolids is such that it's not a health hazard to be applying it on land. Again, correct me, I'm trying to put words in your mouth, but it's not a health hazard, and all the phosphorus and nitrogen and so forth that we're producing has this beneficial aspect in sort of the recycling component of it. You're putting it back to use in the land like we do with compost and so forth. So we have those options. Again, staff's not in favor of that right now. And so here we are.
Yeah, we should be wrapping this up since it's almost 6 o'clock. So, I mean, I think we ought to just wait until the next water resources and get more information and by then you'll have met with the county. I can assure you, because Matt Rogers wrote it down, that you guys are going to meet right away, and we'll just talk about it at the next resources meeting. And probably maybe we could have one of the people from the county in the meeting or something like that. Because I think it's again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think it's a joint thing. It's not just a Loudon Water thing. It's a Loudon County, Loudon Water. And I don't want to step out onto something and then Loudon County go, what are you doing that for? You know, let's find out more information.
Mr. Chairman, this kind of.
Mark, you meant Mark, right?
Mr. Chairman, Mark was. Right. You're pulling my leg. So I just, before we all, you know, miss this meeting and we head out.
Oh, we still have more stuff to go.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not over
Okay.
yet.
So here's just, I just wanted to request here that before Jonathan leaves today, I just wanted to, you know, for us to get a picture with him.
Get a picture? Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so when he graduates from Yale,
Yeah.
I'll be shouting out.
That sounds great. We'll do that. Let's go on to the next agenda item. Hopefully it's just like Oh, the architecture thing. Why don't you show us the one that we voted on? And if there's anybody that doesn't have heart failures on it, which, besides me, right? So,
Yeah, go to the.
yeah, just go to the C is what we kind of talked about.
We did update it based on the feedback that we got. Show the blue.
This is it here.
Yeah.
So at the CIP committee meeting, we showcased the evolution of the pump station as it will be situated on the Two Creek site. And, you know, the shape, the footprint, the form, the building massing has evolved over the last 4 years it's been now since we were last in front of the board committee. You know, so again, we're just trying to borrow a lot of elements from some of that award-winning architecture that we put into place out at the Trap Rock facility. The stone, the color scheme here, and we're making use of these metal panels you see here in blue. That was a change that we made, taking some feedback from the CIP committee discussion. And also this lower portion of the slide to the bottom right, we've added the because that's the portion that would be most visible from the. So yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions, comments.
Yeah, you start turning off the mics at 6, huh? So like Alton was saying that we tried to pick up some elements from the building that we have there already.
So the most visible is attractive in my mind.
Oh, because of that side?
Yeah, so those are all garage doors, kind of?
No, those are windows, I think.
Those are windows
Oh,
into
those are
the,
windows.
Yeah.
The brown ones are windows? Oh, so that's.
yeah, into the
a little
pipe
better than
gallery.
that.
Presumably this thing's gonna be screened from the thing.
Correct. This is
We don't
this
need to
is,
See it anyway.
Yeah, there's a couple of areas that we'll be seeing, yes, but,
Green trees, and so forth, so we don't have to look at this.
well, I think there it is shown. I mean, we're going to be planting trees to kind of.
Yeah.
Believe me, I wanted all those trees cut down, but they wouldn't let me.
yeah, so this,
Because they're Greenway trees, not our trees.
yeah, so real quick, this slide does show the different vantage points. So the upper left of this slide is headed east on the WNOD trail. Again, a lot of existing vegetation there with this facility being set back. And then the lower left of the slide is showing you, for those that were on the tour at the board retreat, you know, kind of looking into the site, how we entered it that day, walking in, you know, again, really obscured by the vegetation. So upper right is sort of the vantage point of driving into the site across the new bridge and access road. And then bottom right, again, is the view from that bridge across Goose Creek with the top portion of the structure visible there above the tree line. And I did have one, you know, again, as design work has been progressing, I have one additional slide here that's showing a sort of a flyover. Again, this is taken from a vantage point of kind of headed into the site from the access road. You can see the WNOD trail there. And so just wanted to kind of point this out as sort of the structure situated on the site. And make note that we've also built in a maintenance storage facility here is what you see toward the left side of the site. But that's a very simple garage type structure.
What's that for?
That's for storing O&M equipment, machinery, pipe. It's we were looking at, you know, the benefit of sort of economy of scale here with all of the site development and site planning that we're doing, of trying to locate this much needed storage out on this portion of the system.
Right, this isn't exclusive to this pump station.
No, I
It's a
understand.
site that we need, you know, in that area.
Is that in the floodplain or is that out of the floodplain?
It's out of the floodplain.
Things, 1,000 square.
Yeah, it's 50 by 100, so 5,000 square feet, and just roll up doors.
I didn't think of it. Yeah.
And so this isn't an action item today. We were just, you know, as we will be advancing through the design throughout the summer, we are looking for board concurrence here today on this general layout and footprint. Of course, minor tweaks can be made, to aesthetics down the road, but really hoping to, sorry, AJ, I exited out of the presentation, but I wanted to go back to the slide that showed the overall, just to make sure, there weren't any other comments or feedback.
Well, for the record, my favorite pump station is the one we did next to River Creek. I think that's the best looking one we have. in the
yeah.
System, but I'm
That's twice the cost.
yeah.
We had to.
We had to because of River Creek.
Yeah, it's gonna be screened.
I love that one. That was
We tried
great.
to take it off.
Yes. Yeah. All right, any other comments? All right, let's go. Next. 1 minute. Yeah, any questions on the 3 reports? I know Brian doesn't like to talk anyway. Yeah, don't let the red line move. I assume no closed meetings. You want to make up one? One last meeting? All right, well now, need a motion to adjourn. All in favor? All right, let's get a picture. And,